Baby Gorillas, and I'm with Elvis, and we're with the Stop Oil protest, just Stop Oil. And Elvis, do you want to just fill us in and just tell us a wee bit about what the protest is? Because obviously, I think you guys have been quite active, haven't you, Elvis, over the period of time. Maybe for people who don't really get it, this is a good opportunity for you to fill in the public, because let's be honest, I think a lot of people might find you as a nuisance, but I think you have to have an avenue to express what it is that you're actually trying to achieve and what it is the reason for the protest, and to see if the public sort of agree with your actions.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we are Just Stop Oil. We're here in Westminster in Parliament Square. We've been here since the 1st of October, and the reason that we're here is fundamentally protesting against the 130 new fossil fuel licences that the UK government is issuing. They're currently getting subsidised to the tune of £236 million a week.
Okay.
That's before the new licences come into effect. We think that's a disgusting amount of money that could be better spent on the NHS, insulating British homes, public transport, this kind of thing. As you say, we do tend to cause some disruption with our roadblocks and whatnot. The reason we do it this way is that we've tried all of the normal channels. We've tried writing to MPs, we've tried writing to councillors. We're now at the point where we have councillors in Just Stop Oil from local councils who support us, because just by going through the normal channels, we've not had any success. And we've got a very short amount of time to turn things around in terms of climate. So we're hoping that this will obviously help our cause a lot more, because the only way that we've ever really achieved things in society for ordinary working people is through civil disobedience. That's the reason that we've got a 40-hour working week, that we have weekends, that we have workers' rights. These are things that people have had to fight for generations and generations, and this is just our fight for this generation to help protect the future of humanity.
Right, so I've been talking to the Green Party up in Scotland,
yes,
with mixed results, and I think having conversations with you is probably easier than having conversations with them, Elvis. But the one of the questions I asked them, and there's obviously questions that the public require to be answered as well. If the UK had zero carbon emissions, would that stop global warming if it is caused by CO2?
Obviously, we're just one country, and we're part of an international coalition all the way from Canada to Australia. We're hoping that we can do what's right in our country and inspire people, ordinary working people, to take to the streets and do the same in their countries. Now, obviously, countries like America and China, they don't have anything to do with issuing these 130 new licences. That lies directly at the feet of the British government, so that's why we're here in the heart of British government, making our say for UK citizens.
So I've done analysis on the CO2 emissions. So it's CO2 that's causing climate change?
That's right. It's gone up exponentially since the start of the Industrial Revolution. 200 years ago, the science is now absolutely clear. There's no debate in it that the average global temperature rises since before the Industrial Revolution are man-made, and that's actually a fact that was discovered by the fossil fuel companies themselves in the 1970s. And as some people might have seen in documentaries such as Big All versus the World on BBC iPlayer, these are facts that have been suppressed for 50 years now, and we're starting to see the effects of why those things have been suppressed. And we've seen 40-degree heat here in the UK.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Right here in London. It's the middle of October, and I'm absolutely baking.
It's boiling here.
The only reason I've got my hat on is so that you don't have to look at my messy hair.
Yeah, mine's messy as well. I might need a hat myself.
Yeah.
So Elvis, so the China puts out 10 billion cubic tons.
It does.
Of CO2. The UK puts out 350 million.
That's right.
Tons, and it's been halved.
Yep.
Over the last period of time as well.
Yep.
How's that percentage wise? If you're correct and the CO2 is the issue,
yep.
How's that, even if the UK got to zero emissions, how's that going to change the climate from the UK's emissions comparative to China? And I'm not including India and America, on the back of that one, Elvis?
Well, obviously, despite us being a very small country relative to China, China's actually the world's largest producer of wind power at the moment, and this is something that we think would be a very big help in the UK. Obviously, we live in an area of the world where we have great tidal and wind power in countries such as Scotland and the northern counties. It's a great source of power. There's also a concern in the UK.
I just want to jump in quickly there. So remember your train of thought. Nicola Sturgeon said she was getting 100% from renewables, but what's actually been has been told just now that Scotland's producing only 51% or 53% of its electricity from renewables, so she may be telling a wee porky pie that we're getting 100% from renewables.
I can't speak for Nicola Sturgeon, but I obviously would personally like to see a huge increase in wind and tidal power in the UK.
And hydro as well.
Yeah, another thing we're concerned about in this country is per capita, we are actually going up the list in terms of CO2 output, so that's something that we think needs addressing. Even though we stay relatively similar position, obviously, in terms of size relative to other countries, that's something per capita that we think needs reducing, and we can do that by encouraging people to get out of the cars, get onto cleaner public transport, things like that, to help really get the per capita CO2 usage down. Now, obviously, the big fossil fuel companies would always like to shift responsibility onto the individual, but it's really system change that we need. After all, they're the ones who invented terms like carbon footprint, which is actually just their way of sort of scapegoating and shirking responsibility. But we want to see system change.
We'll just walk. Would one of the a beneficial thing that you could do rather than this type of protest would be to plant trees?
Obviously, things like planting trees come into it, but that's not really going to solve the problem overall. It's as I mentioned, the new fossil fuel licenses are just only going to exacerbate the rate of thermal increase since pre-industrial levels. At the moment we stand at roughly 1.2, but it's not an exact science, so there's a thing called equity, which is kind of like for every fraction of a degree it really affects ecosystems, but we know that if we go over 1.5 degrees, then we're looking at runaway climate change, and that can't be stopped no matter what we do.
The UK 25,000 years ago was under a mile of ice. The UK was just part of a land bridge between Europe and North America.
Yep.
What would you have been saying at that point?
Well, what we're looking at, if we go over 1.5 or even over 2 degrees C, heaven forbid, we're looking at basically a return to the Eocene era in terms of the climate, and this was a time when you had palm trees in the Arctic tundra.
Wow.
So yeah, we'd be going back to that. When you look at it on a macro scale, forget 25,000 years ago. Was that the figure that you said?
Yeah, I think it was. I wouldn't.
We're looking at going back to an
yeah.
ecosystem that we had here in this part of the world during the Eocene era, during the time of the dinosaurs, hundreds of millions of years ago. So that's really what we're facing if we don't act now. Because if we don't make a change within the next 2 to 3 years, according to the top scientists, including former government advisors, former UN advisors, the general scientific community is in consensus that we are going to be facing that kind of climate again.
Elvis, you said the working class have fought for improved rights and conditions, right, which obviously I'm from the working class as well in Scotland.
Yep.
So what is I forgot what I was going to say there. I just blanked out. Yeah. Okay. So the energy prices now are going absolutely sky high.
Yeah, yes. And a lot of burden on a lot of families.
And the poorest families, because of the changing in supply of power.
Yep.
Obviously this is causing the climate, the green agenda has got an issue for that. What's your thoughts on how the poorest in society can be helped from not suffering and doubling of the actual cost every 2 months of the cost of power?
That's right. Renewables are up to 9 times cheaper, so people would see an instant reduction on the bills. and find a lot more money. People are struggling to put food on the table at the moment, struggling to feed the families. It really is terrible. It's affecting nearly every corner of society. But
how do you square that circle though? Because obviously the greener the power supply, the the increase in the cost of power. And
it's a lot cheaper. No. It's a lot cheaper. And for example, with these new licenses, it takes 20 years to set up an oil terminal. But by the time that oil even starts to come through, it will be too late in terms of average global temperature rises. Because as I just mentioned, we have the next sort of 2 to 3 years to turn things around. Now, there is a very slim chance of that, I will admit, but while there is still a chance, we think it's worth being out here on the streets and fighting
but
for.
If China doesn't change, is they not really going to not make China, India and America, who are the highest polluters?
As I said earlier,
or not polluters, emissions countries.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, we're part of an international coalition, and we just hope that people will step up and do the right thing in their own individual countries, that we can inspire people in other countries to do the same that we're doing.
One of the other things is that from petrol or from the extraction of oil from the North Sea, you can get plastics and other things. So, and obviously plastics are used. How to renew plastics? I believe that you can heat plastics to put them back into the gas sort of, not the gas, the petrol sort of state that they came from, and then be able to reuse them. What's your thoughts on the plastic? Because obviously you need petrol to make the plastics, and obviously plastics is used in a lot of things.
Yeah, renewable plastics would be a good idea. Obviously, the society that we live in now is basically one that's designed around fossil fuel. Many parts of our society are based around cars, and any means that we can get where we can recycle and reuse things instead of things being so obsolete and having to use so much more oil to make new things all the time would obviously be a big improvement. Yeah, if there was a legitimate scientific way of doing that, then we would welcome that.
Well, let me point you to California just now and what happened recently. And the California is going to try and ban, I think, petrol cars. Is
that right?
Well, as far as I'm aware, I wouldn't, as I said, stake my life on it, but as far as I'm aware. But their grid went down. So they've got brownouts and blackouts, and so the actual powering of
like we're going to get in November, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, that just goes to show, because that's obviously happening under fossil fuels. It's not for a lack of energy. We've actually got 8 years worth of oil in reserves. Even if we turn the taps off today and stopped importing more oil, we've got 8 to 10 years worth of reserves. So it's not a matter of availability, it's just a matter of corporate greed, and people, ordinary working families, getting rinsed every month, seeing the bills going up and up and up, and they're getting less and less. It's putting terrible burdens on people, and that's just from a financial point of view, let alone thinking about the children's future and the family's future and things like that. So if that's something that California is going for, I'd welcome that. But these rolling blackouts aren't for a lack of supply. It just all comes down to corporate greed, really.
And do you think that individuals should be able to generate their own power? Whether they should have a greater opportunity to generate.
Absolutely. If people can get the bills down with any means, any environmentally sound means, in their own homes. The main thing we focus on is insulation. It's so easy to get your bills down if your homes are properly insulated, and one thing we're hoping is that instead of the £236 million a week going to fossil fuel companies, that part of that money could be used to insulate British homes, and the impact will be instant. People will not have to turn the heating on so much during winter, and with proper insulated homes we really can get a real grip on that situation.
You can generate power through a stationary bike. Do you think we should give like fat people stationary bikes to generate power?
Well, I wouldn't be sort of sizist or ableist or anything like that.
And that'll cut down the problems with the health.
But if it helps them get the bills down and it's clean, then it's fine by us as long as it's clean. Obviously we want people to be healthy. That's why we're out here. Look, I'm a father of two, and I'm looking at the next couple of decades and wondering what this country is going to be like when children reach my age, and it's absolutely terrifying at the moment, to be honest, because we're looking at we're already seeing trees growing in the Arctic tundra,
wow.
and we're looking at there being no ice in Antarctica during
summer.
Well,
let me just challenge that because I was told that I heard that the last 2 years in the Arctic were the coldest years on history or on recorded history.
I'm not sure you heard that.
I might be wrong.
Frozen Planet 2's out at the moment. Sir David Attenborough, he's doing a lot of stuff on that. I heard a rather shocking statistic on that recently, actually. In the Himalayas, some of the tundras are retreating by 100 kilometres a year.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. 100 kilometres a year.
So if we all chip in, will you guys go to China and start protesting over there?
If the Chinese population wants to join us in solidarity, obviously that's a long way to go. But they're very welcome in China to join our coalition. Like I said, we've got partners all the way from Canada to Australia.
I think they planted not that I'm a big supporter of the CCP, but the Chinese Communist Party got the army to plant a forest. I think they could actually see that from outer space, that they actually had a forest planted.
Really?
I'm sure.
Well, they did say that about the Great Wall of China, but that's not actually visible from space. So
no, but
I'm not up to speed on that. On that
I'm sure they did.
So
I'm sure
can't
they
really
did.
comment.
No, I may be wrong, but I'm sure they did.
My focus is right here in the UK, so looking after British families, because that's all we can do. We all live where we live. We're born where we're born. So everybody's just got to really do what they can do.
Well, at least
in their own countries.
At least you got your message out, and maybe a few more people will actually be able to listen to it. And understand.
And we're going to be here at 11 o'clock every day, across from Downing Street, meeting on Whitehall. Your viewers are free to come and join us. The more the merrier. And it's been great since the 1st of October. We felt a real sense of solidarity. We're getting a great response from the public. A lot of members of the public are supporting us. A lot of members of the public are coming to join us. There are members of the public who have been over, had a conversation with us, and just 2 days later they've been out on action with us and been doing roadblocks and things like that. So as long as we're keeping the conversation going and keeping people aware of what the government are doing and how much deliberate suffering that they're putting onto people purely for financial greed, then that's a really good thing. But thank you very much for
Elvis, thanks very much, and welcome to the Guerilla TV channel. Thanks, Elvis.
Take care.
So this is the guys here. So they're outside the Department for Business and Energy. Hi there, hi. And so they've got the stop oil. Just stop oil. Hello there. So quite interesting. My hair's away again. Honestly, I need to get some sort of hairspray. So right outside the Department for Energy, Business, Energy and Industry. So I'll let you guys make of that what you will. Quite interesting chat. I quite enjoyed that. It's always good to get other people's opinions. Agree with them or not, that's down to my baby gorillas. Au revoir.